Hi everyone, Anthony Dutano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Jens Lekman project, Songs for Other People's Weddings. Swedish singer-songwriter and veteran indie darling Mr. Jens Lekman. He is back with this new and very ambitious, very conceptual album, which, from the title, is exactly what it says it is, in a very literal sense. Going into this album, you should know Jens is not merely working at this idea from, some notion of an outside perspective, but no, the inspiration from this album, as well as an accompanying book that came out over a month ago at this point, is based on his own time spent as a wedding singer, an opportunity that apparently he jumped on even after he was beginning to make a name for himself as an independent singer and songwriter. This guy was taking on side quests pretty early on, you could say. So yeah, this is a world and a profession, I guess you could say, Mr. Lekman has been attached to in some way, shape, or form for years now, but still, when it came to the idea of executing an album of this magnitude with this kind of narrative, conceptual angle, at first he was kind of apprehensive, not only as this was something he hadn't really done before, but he had his own personal criticisms and issues with a narrative and high concept albums such as this in the past. However, I guess he felt more assured in going in this direction after connecting with friend and author David Levithan, who apparently took part in the literary leg of this music book project. So yeah, throughout this album we get a series of songs, 17 in fact, essentially about a wedding singer's experiences, among other things, and as a result of this we really get a sense from Lekman why music is such a huge part of romance and just relationships in general. And in an effort to effectively make that case, we essentially hear a series of songs on this record that are told from different perspectives with different approaches, because of course, numerous times over in the track list here, you have very beautiful, fun, infectious love songs. That's just kind of a given, of course. But then on top of that, you have tunes and musical palettes that feel like they were literally crafted to be played at a wedding itself during certain moments, be it walking down the aisle, the first dance, or, something just kind of jovial and celebratory for the party afterward. Sidebar, while going in this direction does lead to a lot of very pretty and ornate instrumental arrangements, simultaneously there is something like very persistently polite, occasionally maybe toothless, about the music on this record, even during its most danceable moments. So, clearly it was the goal going into this album to write, create, and record music that, could be reasonably played at a wedding setting without necessarily offending anybody or souring the mood on the dance floor. You also have transitional moments here and there on the record that, essentially enhance the narrative voice of the wedding singer character, kind of traveling out and about to different airports. And then on top of that, there are other songs in the track list that merely read like Mr. Lekman's observations on love. Whether it is With You I Can Hear My Own Voice, which is not just an anthemic and well arranged and produced a bit of anthemic sophisti-pop, but it's actually just like a really wonderful, lovely sentiment to relay in the midst of a love song. I mean, there are all sorts of, words and perspectives that have been written about love in song, but the idea that, with you can hear your own voice, you get to know yourself better, this person is your mirror, they enhance your life and your sense of self in some way. That's a very beautiful and nice idea to get across. Something that runs a lot deeper than, just merely like, I like you and a bunch of stuff about you I think is cool, huh? Also, throughout some of these tracks, maybe not for the entirety of a song, but, tucked in here and there on certain tracks, we do also have a lot of meditations on, the downsides of love, or maybe, moments when relationships aren't at their best. And for a record of this style with this concept, I'm actually surprised to, hear Mr. Lekman touch down on that very idea so often. But, maybe I can't really be surprised considering this is a topic topic that this guy has been embracing and writing about for years now, whether it's like, with early tracks that obviously kind of spurred this whole thing off, like If You Ever Need a Stranger to Sing at Your Wedding, or, even his 2012 album titled famously, I Know What Love Isn't. So yeah, overall this is like a very self-aware, focused project that is like, really, really deeply invested in its own concept. And it's also said to be influenced, at least in part, by Frank Sinatra's own like very narrative-based Watertown. But more than anything, for me personally, like musically, aesthetically, even lyrically at points, what this record really reminds me of is like a different version or different approach to something like the Magnetic Field 69 love songs, because you do have a lot of tracks, a lot of material on this record. There are a great deal of love songs on this record, obviously, but much of the singing and sometimes the playing has maybe a touch of like an amateurish charm to it. The vibes overall are very cheery and quaint and sweet on the ears, and the whole thing comes together like a very theatrical review of sorts, I guess you could say. So again, I do like how consistent aesthetically this record is. I do like how married to, its own storytelling it is much of the time. I appreciate the ambition of it overall, but that doesn't mean that I don't have my issues with it, because there are moments where it does feel like kind of bogged down by its own concept and storytelling, with this being such a lengthy record at 17 tracks, 80 minutes of runtime. There are plenty of moments, in my opinion, where it does feel almost like the story Mr. Lekman wants to get across kind of overtakes the music itself, like on Speak to Me in Music, where he's like literally going over the experience of working with a couple on, the musical component of their upcoming, ceremony. And of course, there's also the 10-minute long wedding in Leipzig, which does start off very strong, but once it like really begins to trail off into, these interlude moments and like really extending the story out, it does become kind of a daunting listen. With that being said, though, this album is like a very thorough character portrait and slice of life, I guess you could say, with a lot of wonderful tunes and highlights to boot. But like, you've really got to be in love with the idea of what this record is trying to accomplish and achieve to really enjoy a lot of, those like transitional moments that feel like they are merely just there to add to the storyline of it, and maybe not as much merely the musical appeal of this project, which is why I'm feeling maybe about a strong 6 on this album. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Jens Lekman, forever.